Batman fact for you. Do you know that when Batman has sex with a woman, he's actually thinking about himself and he actually screams out his own name? Why? Because he's the Batman and he is that damn good. Hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video, and today we're going to be talking a little DC and a little video games, and also a new segment that I'm going to try to introduce into these videos, these blog videos called Hey DC. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So we're going to talk a little bit about DC's retroactive comic line that was talked at WonderCon, and we're also going to talk about my position on the Wonder Woman show right now with the revealing of the costume and then a re-revealing of the costume, and then also the little footage that was shown that really shouldn't be used in any kind of analysis of the show. And then we're going to talk about the new Green Lantern footage that was shown at WonderCon, the in-depth 4-minute trailer that was shown. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Skyward Sword, its new trailer that came out actually a while back. I'm a little late coming to this discussion, but I want to discuss a little Skyward Sword. And we're also going to talk a little bit about Resident Evil, where the series could go. What would Resident Evil 6 be? Would it be a reboot? Would it continue the current storyline? We'll get into that. So let's talk about DC retroactive comic line first. Now, at WonderCon, DC announced at DC Nation that they're going to be doing a retroactive series. And before I actually jump into this, I want to give a little credit to Dan Didio. See, when it comes down to it, being the editor of DC Comics, it must be a really tough job, and I do give credit because there's a lot of stuff that he could do good and a lot of stuff he could do bad. I mean, just look at Marvel. Joe Quesada is just totally wrecking things over there. But I think Dan Didio realizes that he could do better and that he's trying to do better. And the one thing I have to give credit is that he's an incredibly charismatic individual. Incredibly charismatic. I'm still not going to let him get away with some of the shit he pulls. Some of the stuff he does pull is a little sketchy that I don't like, but I have to say he is quite charismatic and he did intrigue me the whole entire video. And he does seem like he actually wants to make DC a better company. He asks fans what they like and what they don't like about the comics. So I have to give credit there. I'm still not going to go easy on you, Dan, but anyways, DC talked about the new retroactive comic line. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to take stories from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s of comic books and rewrite them with new writers and use those stories as inspiration for more updated stories. And they're going to focus on Justice League, Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Green Lantern, and I also think the Flash. I could be a little wrong about that, but I think the Flash is included there. And basically, they're just going to take a story from, say, the 90s and rewrite the story, update it, use a new writer, and use that story as basis for the updated version of the story. And this is more of a way to kind of get a shot of nostalgia into their fans, and for fans that started reading comics during those specific time periods, like I started reading during the 90s because, I mean, back in the 80s I was only 3 at best. But this is a way to kind of, a little, I guess, thank you to the fans, a little gift to the fans. This is good, and also this could be bad. Which is kind of funny because when they announced this, this was an idea that I thought would really work for DC to kind of fix up their continuity. Do a comic book line called, I don't know, DC Silver, where they take old Silver and Age and Bronze Age stories and update them and fix them up for continuity. And although they're taking stories for this idea retroactive, they're not necessarily updating it for continuity, they're doing it more just for fan service. And the good things about this is it does give you a chance to clean up old stories and to make them better. In addition to that, you can make the stories more in-depth, more relevant, and more fun. And it can bring in old readers who has nostalgia for these stories. And depending on what writers you have on there, it could really help out. I mean, they're pulling out some really good writers for this, including Dennis O'Neil is going to be thrown on there. The bad is, how is this going to be translated into the DC continuity? Will this be canon? Will this be just more of a fan service, or will this actually be part of the DC continuity? Will I be able to take these stories, if they're ever collected in trade, and put them in my collection in like a timeline? Because you guys all know how I'm a big continuity person. I make all my timeline videos. How will this work towards continuity? So this has a lot of good ups and downs. I feel more positive about this than negative. We'll see how it plays out. Like I said, they're going to be doing Justice League, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and also The Flash. And they're going to be doing stories from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. I don't think the 90s are necessary because 90s aren't that long ago, only 10-ish years. But still, well, not 10-ish years, but not quite in the 20-year range. But, it's still a good idea, and I have hope for it. We'll see what happens. It really comes down to how well they translate the old stories into the new ones. What would be really nice if they collected the old ones with the new ones so you can do a comparison contrast. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Now let's talk about the Wonder Woman television show, the costume, and the bare minimum footage that was shown. Now, when I first announced about the Wonder Woman TV show, it sounds like I'm the one that kind of gave it to the general public. When I first talked about it in one of my previous videos, I said how excited I was about this show. I want to point out a flaw that comes not only with me, but with fans in general, is that when something big comes out for something that you like, for example, for me, I'm a big Wonder Woman fan, so there's a new Wonder Woman show. You get excited so much, and it kind of blinds your perception of what can be and what might be. I've had some time to let the show settle, and I had some time to read what it could be about, and I must say my opinions have changed drastically. I'm still going to hold true to the fact that anything has a chance to impress me or to disappoint me. However, from what I've seen of the new Wonder Woman stuff, I seem to be leaning more towards the fact that it could disappoint me. See, the person that did Ally McBeal is actually going to be writing the show, and I have a fear that this is going to turn out like Sexy Female Lawyer from Futurama. It's actually kind of funny because someone on the DC message board did an in-depth analysis with very little data they had about how this could be Sexy Female Lawyer Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman having to deal with different love interests and going out and partying during the day and doing a little bit of superheroism towards night. Whether or not this will be the case, we're going to have to see. But I'm a little concerned that they're going to really kind of modernize Wonder Woman too much and adapt her too much to a general public, and she's going to lose what Wonder Woman makes her so good. And they're probably going to dumb down her also as a character. And this is just how I feel. Whether or not this will happen, we will see. I pray to the mighty gods of the Batman that this won't happen. And you too, Heronius. Lawful good. Love you. But the thing is that it seems to be going in that direction. As for the costume, there's been two costumes that have been shown. There's been shown a more of a concept design costume that's not going to be used in the current one. And this is basically just the reboot costume that is being used in the comics, which makes me think, well, I bet the reboot costume is more of a way to kind of make Wonder Woman fit for television or for movies. Whether or not that was the case, whatever. But anyways, the costume itself, a lot of people are harping on it. I don't hate it. I'm actually surprised they're doing kind of a superhero costume. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of the traditional Wonder Woman costume, so I'd rather have that, but we're not going to get that. So what it is, it's okay, but it's not impressive. The second costume definitely looks better than the first one. And I'll live with it. I guess that's the thing. And I hate to say this, but I'm kind of settling. I think it's because in my brain, I know I'm not going to expect anything more from the costume. I'm not going to expect the traditional Wonder Woman bikini kind of costume or a traditional Amazon armor costume. That would be really cool. It's going to be more of a modernized superhero reboot costume. However, I have to say it would have been better if they, as much as I think in the comics they should put more blue in the costume, for the television show, the black would actually work a little bit better. It's not quite Wonder Woman, but the black would probably work better. Again, I guess I'm settling with the costume because I know there's not going to be anything better. But I don't hate it like a lot of people do. I'm just kind of there. The belt bothers me, though. The belt definitely bothers me. It looks very cheap and fake. So with that said, let's move on. I guess with Wonder Woman, my expectations has been set a little low, in that I'm worried on whether or not it will succeed. Hopefully it does succeed. I hope it does, and hopefully it spurs interest in the comic book character. I doubt it because television movies really don't have any effect on comic book sales. So let's talk a little bit about the Green Lantern footage that was shown at WonderCon. There was like a 4 to 5 minute trailer, I guess, of Green Lantern, showing a little bit more about Hal Jordan, showing a little bit more about the Lanterns like Tomare and Abensor and Sinestro, and it also showed a little parallax and some of the enemies and stuff. And I have to say, it looks really good. It really does, especially the Green Lantern material with Tomare and Sinestro. I do have to say that I am a little bit hesitant on one or two things. As much as I like Ryan Reynolds as an actor, and as much as I think he'll do a good job in this role, he doesn't quite feel Hal Jordan to me. Hal Jordan is kind of a playboy, kind of a reckless uh, individual, but he also has a very serious side, and he when he puts on the mask, he changes from being this kind of carefree Hal Jordan to the Green Lantern. He's all business, and I'm curious on whether or not Ryan Reynolds will pull off that all business attitude that comes with character when he becomes Green Lantern, when he takes on that persona. But besides that, I think the digital effects look great, the graphics look great, I think the costumes look great, with the exception of the mask. I don't like the mask. The mask looks a little weird, at least for Hal. But besides that, everything else looks pretty good, and I'm interested to see how it works out. I'm really interested. I hope this will be like a 2 to 3 movie series if it does well for the first movie, and they pace it really well. Like the first arc deals with Parallax coming to Earth and Green Lantern defeating it. The second arc deals with the betrayal of Sinestro, and the third arc can go into the like a Sinestro Corps Green Lantern conflict, which would be nice. We'll see. We will see. Moving on, we will talk a little bit about Skyward Sword's new gameplay trailer. This was shown a while back. I don't know if it was at PAX or C2E2 or I don't know, whatever. It was shown, and then we got a little bit more of a visual about the gameplay of Skyward Sword and also the levels that are going to be shown. My opinion of Skyward Sword has been a very fluctuating one. My opinion with Zelda, I have a lot of different opinions on how the series should go. But one thing I always say to a lot of people is that right now my favorite game is Ocarina of Time. And I don't think it's the best game because it's my favorite game. It's my favorite game because it's the best. And I'm always looking for the Zelda series to improve and do better than Ocarina of Time. It's come close a few times with like Majora's Mask, and even Wind Waker does very well, but no game has quite touched Ocarina of Time in the Zelda series yet. And when Skyward Sword was first shown, I was very hesitant about it. I didn't know what to feel. There wasn't enough shown for me to really establish an opinion. And my views were more in negative than positive. However, I'm starting to actually really get pumped and excited for this game. One is that the gameplay looks really great. The actual sword, the one-to-one sword ability, depending on how you slash, the sword is actually going to work that way. So if I go the sword is actually going to do that. It looks really nice in that, and it seems like they streamlined the selection of items and actually how the game controls work a lot better. I also heard, and how much validity to this is debatable, but I also heard it's going to be a little bit more like traditional Zelda games. It's not going to be so linear. It's going to be more off to whatever direction you are, so want to go. So that could be better. It's kind of like a throwback to the old series. Not saying Zelda is doing bad with its direction, but we see a lot of times video game series go off a little too far in one direction. For example, Sonic the Hedgehog has gone off in like 9 million directions, with him becoming a werewolf, a Super Saiyan, and using swords and guns. But they're trying to go back to traditional Sonic. Why? Because if it's not broken, don't fix it. Speed, side-scrolling. Same thing with Mortal Kombat. The new Mortal Kombat game that's come out has received so much praise, and it's because the game is going back to its roots and going back to what works with it. Sometimes game series need to change, like Resident Evil needed to change. With Resident Evil 4 was a huge step in the right direction. However, sometimes game series don't need to change, like Sonic or Mortal Kombat. And sometimes game series need to play back and forth between the two, like Zelda. Zelda is going back to his more traditional way of doing things with dungeons, focusing more on the gameplay rather than the story, which I guess I'm okay with now, in addition to that incorporating new to the gameplay. And I think how revolutionary or how more advanced this actual gameplay is going to be with the combat could make this game better than Ocarina of Time. Will it happen? We're going to have to see. They're going to have to up the difficulty because since Majora's Mask, actually, since Wind Waker, a lot of Zelda games haven't been that hard. Four Swords Adventures, Twilight Princess, Minish Cap, and the DS games, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. They've been very easy. They need to up the difficulty a bit. Up. Okay, and then we're going to jump into Resident Evil 6 real quickly. I've been doing very little research, but I'm still going to, I still look around, and there's been talks that the Resident Evil series is going to lean more towards a reboot. Whether or not this is necessary is debatable. I guess you really have very little left to do, Capcom, once you killed off Wesker, the main villain of the series. Why you did that still baffles me. Not only is he a fantastic character, but now you just eliminated the main antagonist for your series. Why? There's still a lot of stuff haven't been done with Resident Evil in this continuity, I guess. A reboot should not be needed. Are we leaning towards that? Yes, but do we need that? I don't think so. There's still a lot of stuff with Leon's character and Claire's character and Ada's character that you can still do and that you need to wrap up. So I think killing Wesker really screwed you over. But should a reboot happen? No, I don't think so at all. I think a reboot is a bad idea. At least right now. I think Resident Evil 6 should be a wrap-up series where you play as Leon and Claire and you kind of try to wrap up the series a bit. Maybe they find a way to get rid of the virus and, we get to see the endings of those characters. But until then, a reboot should be out of the question. So that's kind of my 2 cents real quickly on whether or not Resident Evil should reboot. I'm going to lean very much towards no, but we never know what might happen. And finally, I'm going to do a segment called Hey DC. And basically, this is me saying, hey, DC, you should do this. Kind of me throwing out my own 2 cents and my suggestions on a specific topic. In today's topic, we're going to talk about, hey, DC, what should you do with Wonder Woman in comics? So, here we go. Hey, DC. Hey there. What should you do with Wonder Woman? Her comic, so iconic, so well known in the comic book community. She's even part of what you consider your holy trinity. But her sales just don't work. Should we reboot her? Should we change her costume? Should we change her character? The question is this. Is Wonder Woman really the problem? Or is it just the market segment that she's in? DC, in my opinion, Wonder Woman is not the problem. It's more or less the audience that she's being geared towards. Now, I think the biggest thing is the fact that she is being geared towards male readers. And whether or not those male readers want to admit it or they just don't care about reading a female character outside of a comic book team. Female characters don't do well in their own comics. Wonder Woman is not exclusive to this. In other female characters, when they go off and they do their own comic, it doesn't usually last that long. Wonder Woman has standed the test of time, mostly because you guys helped her out. But when females are in team-ups, they tend to get a little bit more praise because there's male characters there for the male readers to enjoy. Now, why male readers don't like female characters, I don't know. I guess I'm in the minority, because I love Wonder Woman. She's my second favorite superhero. But maybe male readers just can't relate to a female character. Or maybe they're intimidated by a female character. Or maybe they're just intimidated by Wonder Woman's mythos and her character being drastically different in backstory and in history than, say, a traditional superhero like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, so on and so forth. So then begs the question, if Wonder Woman is not broken, and it's more or less the audience she is directed to. How do we fix this? How do we change this? Well, that's definitely a tough problem to answer because, see, Wonder Woman, if you look at the comic, has actually been consistently good and well written. It just hasn't been well received. George Perez's run on Wonder Woman was fantastic. The art is top notch in what George Perez does best. And also, George Perez does a great job at bringing Wonder Woman back to her traditional Greek mythos roots and making her a little bit more of a relatable character that needs to grow and evolve. Really working on a backstory, really working on the foundation of Wonder Woman's universe. Then we jump to another big writer, Greg Rucka, who really focused on Wonder Woman as an ambassador and as a diplomat, and really gave it an overall arc to his stories. Very nicely done with the writing, and made Wonder Woman feel like a superhero, but at the same time make her feel a little bit more human. And then Gal Simone, who's done a great job with Wonder Woman, pushing her in directions that she's never gone before, facing enemies she's never dealt with before, doing things radical, but with still in the confines of Wonder Woman's universe and in her character. She's changing things up, but not enough to ruin the character at all. These are great writers who've done great job with Wonder Woman. There has been a few faults here and there, but for the most part, the Wonder Woman writing for the comic has been consistent and good. It's just the fact that you're segmenting her to male readers. And, like I said, male readers tend not to accept female comic book characters for whatever reason. I don't think it's because the male readers are sexist. I just think it's the fact that they can't relate to her, or maybe they're intimidated by her, or they're just intimidated and scared to try out her comic. So, again, this poses the question. What can we do to fix up Wonder Woman? Well, I think that's a question that has been asked and has not been answered for a long time. Because if we had an answer, we would try it. But changing up Wonder Woman is definitely not the case to go. Sure, you can update her costume, but to update it and change it so much that it doesn't look recognizably Wonder Woman and does not have the traditional Wonder Woman feel to it, I don't think that's the way to go. Maybe make it look a little bit like Donna Troy's costume in the one latest stories when she was Wonder Woman. You know, a little bit more battle armor. I'm getting off track. See, what I think you should do to truly try to get Wonder Woman a little bit more ratings, and whether or not this would work is debatable, but I think you should really take high-profile writers and artists and put them on Wonder Woman. When you have a writer and an artist who are so well known and so well loved, people tend to read whatever they put out. For example, the big names in DC, and there's a ton of big names when it comes down to writers, but the particular two that stand out are Geoff Johns and Grant Morrison. Now, I want to state right now, in the interviews, Geoff Johns and Grant Morrison both said that they're unsure on whether or not they would want to write Wonder Woman. They can't quite get inside her head, and they don't know how to express the character. It's not the fact that they don't want to, is they just don't know whether or not they could handle the character correctly. However, let's just say one of them did. Let's just say Geoff Johns or Grant Morrison decided they're going to give a shot at Wonder Woman. Not only will this give a chance for Wonder Woman to have a breath of fresh air with a new writer, but being that Grant Morrison and Geoff Johns are both incredibly popular writers in the DC universe, it will bring over a group of people that may want to see how they handle Wonder Woman and see how well Wonder Woman is done with these two writers. And who knows, it could boost sales for Wonder Woman as a comic. In addition to that, maybe throw out some artists there that are really well known. I know Jim Lee's busy with being a top dog in DC, but his art is loved by many people. And if you put him on Wonder Woman's comic, that might bring over some people. It doesn't have to be for a long time. It could be for 4 issues. Have Grant Morrison and Jim Lee team up, or Geoff Johns and Jim Lee team up. Or you can even have Grant Morrison and Geoff Johns on the same title, kind of working back and forth. And they don't have to commit that long. You can have them come over. People would want to read the comic because it's Jim Lee and Geoff Johns, and also Grant Morrison, and then they might stay with the title. Now, whether or not this will work is all debatable, but it's something that you haven't really tried. I mean, George Perez, well-known writer, well-known artist, more known for his artistic work than his writing, but when he was on Wonder Woman, it was great. Greg Rucka, well-known writer. Gal Simone, loved by the fan base for her work in Birds of Prey. But right now, Those aren't the hot people. As much as I love them, right now the hot people are Grant Morrison and Jeff Johns. You should really throw them on the title. Even though they're a bit reluctant, give them a chance. See how it would work out. You know, what's the worst going to happen? I doubt her sales will go down if you do this. And anything, it gives you a chance to try to do things differently without going so radical as rebooting her and changing her costume to an extreme. Like I said, maybe throw an artist on there that is really well done as an artist, like Jim Lee, or maybe have George Perez come back. Or you could throw on Ed Benz, who does fantastic art, and I really enjoy his stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with Wonder Woman without actually having to fix something that's not broken. Because, see, Wonder Woman as a character and as a comic is not broken. Her costume is not broken. Her backstory is not broken. Her character is not broken. And her universe is not broken. It's really just the fact that you have to approach marketing a little differently when it comes down to it. Because, like I said, Wonder Woman's a female character. And sadly, female characters just aren't as well received in the DC universe and in comic books in general to male audience. So, DC, take my stuff. Take my recommendations. Try to work with it. Whether or not you're actually going to watch this video is up in the air. But I definitely think that if you go in this direction, it could help out Wonder Woman and maybe boost the sales and spur some interest. With that said, that is my Hey DC. I'm going to try to post one each time I'm going to do these videos. If you have your own opinions and your own thoughts on how to fix Wonder Woman, maybe take her in a direction that would work well for the character, please post. I would love to hear your responses and your opinions. With that said, I'm going to end this video here. This is Andrew saying, peace out for now.